Okay, so in this video, I'm going to talk a little bit about some things to consider when planning your belly pan. So first off, a belly pan is where we keep all our electrical and pneumatic components. So first off, we're going to talk about electromagnetic fields, or EMF. So EMF is an electrical field which is generated by basically anything that uses power. On the robot, the principal source of this are the sim motors and also the battery to some extent. The sim motors can be harmful, their EMF can be harmful to any controlling component such as the router or the Robo-Rio. So placing those two away from the sim motors is very important. Another thing to consider is short circuits. So here, it could be as simple as just a connector coming loose and exposing some bare wire, or forgetting to electrical tape up a connection. But in the past, it can also be something like your battery. So what you want to make sure you do is have all electrical connections insulated electrically. So in the past, the battery has conducted some of its charge into the frame of the robot, which causes the battery to last a lot less long. It can also cause your robot to stop functioning entirely. So if you're conducting some electricity away in something like this to the frame of your robot, or to a component that is not expecting an electrical charge, it can either cause your robot to malfunction and stop working, or destroy expensive electrical equipment. Another thing to consider when creating your belly pan is the weight of components and the vibrations that they can create. So here we have a good example of what not to do. It is a battery that is zip tied to the top of the robot frame. So the main problem with this is obviously batteries are very heavy, and during a match the robot will move around a lot, and zip ties are not able to hold that battery in place during a match. Another problem, as we've talked about in the past, is batteries have been known to conduct charge into the frame. So having your battery enclosure electrically insulated will help you in the match. Pictured also here is the compressor. The compressor creates a lot of vibration, which can possibly harm your robot or even the compressor if it's not mounted properly. So on the bottom you can see there are these little rubber standoffs, and those are used basically to isolate the compressor from the frame so it doesn't translate too much of those vibrations to the robot. So you want to try your best to use these when mounting it, and make sure you screw it in, or else your compressor is going to be bouncing all over the place and damaging components. And a few tricks for keeping cables tidy. So the first very important one is always plan out your cable routes. Use cable ties to ensure that the cables stay in place. We can also use electrical tape to tape the wires down to the frame, as well as hot glue in some situations, but it should only be a last resort, as it is very messy that way. Another thing to consider is always use connections or soldering when you can. So a connection is good when you may need to unplug it to connect something else. So say your motor controllers to your motors, you might want to disconnect the motor controllers in the future to either replace them or replace the motors. So on the bottom here we have ferrules. They're very similar to the connectors you put on wires, except they are for making bare wires easier to plug into things like the voltage regulator module or the power distribution panel. And in the middle, solder anything that you can. It is much cleaner, and always make sure you then electrical tape up your solder jobs after. So those are all the things you need to consider when planning out your belly pan. Thanks for checking out this video, and I wish you luck in your upcoming season.